Knowledge, power, and the structure of modern ignorance. 1. The prison of ignorance. Freedom, contrary to popular slogans and bumper stickers, is not a birthright, it's a byproduct of thought. As a man thinks, so is he, and if he doesn't think, well, he tweets. The root of modern enslavement is not force, but a collective lack of knowledge. Illiteracy in how systems of government, finance, and law function has left many intellectually disarmed and economically handcuffed. The average citizen is overstimulated by entertainment and undernourished in facts. The obsession with sports, television, and mere survival has replaced inquiry, education, and understanding. As a result, the general population remains blind to the machinations shaping both domestic and international policy. For over 3,000 years, European empires, especially the Roman Empire, have influenced global power structures. The phrase "all roads lead to Rome" is more than a historical quip, it's a warning label for geopolitics. Many of the institutions that govern modern life, legal, religious, commercial, are built atop Roman models. The tragedy is not just that most citizens don't know this. It's that they don't know. Footnote. The absence of civic and historical knowledge has created a passive populace unaware of the foundational systems that influence their freedoms. 2. Historical amnesia and manufactured consent. The crises of modern civilization, economic instability, political corruption, social unrest, are not spontaneous. They have deep historical roots, many of which trace back to Rome and the ideological blueprints it exported. Yet the average person, armed with little more than memes and Monday Night Football, remains oblivious to these origins. Educational institutions have largely failed to teach the mechanics of power. Instead, society churns out obedient consumers, not critical thinkers. The consequence is a global population vulnerable to manipulation and incapable of defending its rights, because it doesn't know what those rights are, or where they came from. A functioning republic depends on informed citizens. But when the people are unread, ill-informed, and emotionally sedated by trivial distractions, democracy becomes a theatrical performance, a circus without the bread. Footnote. Modern socio-political dysfunction stems from the public's ignorance of historical power structures and civic systems. 3. Freedom requires vision, and eyeglasses won't help. Civilizations collapse not because of invading armies or market crashes alone, but due to a lack of vision. Where there is no vision, the people perish, not metaphorically, but quite literally. A society that does not understand its past, cannot grasp its present, and has no plan for its future is simply waiting for history to bulldoze it. Vision, in this context, is not a TED Talk about manifesting goals. It is strategic, intellectual foresight grounded in historical literacy and civic understanding. Without this, citizens become passive participants in their own decline, like passengers on a train heading off a cliff, arguing over window seats. The call to wake up is not spiritual fluff. It's a plea for strategic awareness. A population that does not know where its freedoms come from, or how to defend them, will soon have none. And unlike your favorite series, liberty doesn't come with a reboot. Footnote. Societies without historical and civic vision risk collapse due to an inability to navigate or correct systemic threats. 4. Roman law, modern slavery. Ancient Roman legal maxims still echo through today's courtrooms and bureaucracies, just with fancier suits and better lighting. Two standouts: he who would be deceived, let him, and if you do not defend your rights, you have none. These aren't just dusty Latin phrases, they are active doctrines shaping how modern legal systems view personal responsibility and citizen awareness. The modern state operates on the presumption that ignorance is consent. Don't know your rights? Then, apparently, you didn't want them. Fail to assert your freedom? Then you must not value it. The burden of liberty is not on the state to grant, it's on the citizen to claim. And yet, the average citizen is unaware of the legal frameworks that bind them, or the rights they are presumed to waive through silence. It's not that they're legally enslaved, it's that they don't realize the paperwork says so. Footnote. Modern legal systems often rely on Roman principles that presume ignorance as consent and require active defense of individual rights. 5. The strategic weaponization of ignorance. The illusion of freedom is maintained not through chains, but through distractions. Citizens are inundated with media, marketing, and meaningless content, all while crucial knowledge about government, law, and economics remains hidden in plain sight, like the vegetables kids ignore on a buffet table. The population is preoccupied with entertainment and survival, leaving no time or mental bandwidth to question who owns what, who controls whom, or why things never seem to change. Meanwhile, those in power consolidate influence, draft the rules, and quietly rewrite the terms of social contracts that no one remembers signing. The tragic irony is that the tools for liberation, books, lectures, public records, even the internet, are more available than ever. But access without awareness is just another form of captivity. And the fewer people who read, the easier it is for power to hide in footnotes. Footnote: public ignorance is systematically reinforced through distraction and disengagement, ensuring that power remains unchallenged and opaque. 6. Education as revolution. History is clear on one point: the most dangerous act a person can commit in an oppressive system is to think, especially in public. From ancient philosophers to cassette tape rebellions, education has repeatedly sparked revolutions. It turns out the state fears a library card more than a protest sign. The dissemination of critical knowledge, particularly among youth, has long been viewed by power structures as a threat. Teaching young people to question authority, examine systems, and think independently tends to make those systems uncomfortable. Socrates didn't die of old age. Even in recent history, grassroots information sharing, such as recordings circulated among students, has triggered mass movements. When citizens begin to understand the nature of power, they tend to demand some of it back. That's not chaos. That's democracy with teeth. Footnote: independent education has historically served as the catalyst for civil awakening and systemic challenge, particularly among youth. 7. What the world really needs: a renaissance, not a riot. The global crisis is not a shortage of weapons or wealth, it's a shortage of wisdom. The world doesn't need another protest or policy memo, it needs a renaissance. Not the kind with oil paintings and powdered wigs, but a renewal of intellectual and spiritual integrity. This renaissance begins with the individual reclaiming sovereignty over the mind. Not through conspiracy, but through comprehension. A civilization cannot remain free if its citizens don't know what freedom actually means, or how their institutions function. In such ignorance, every government becomes a potential puppet show. The call is not for anarchy, but for awareness. Knowledge must again become fashionable, curiosity must replace complacency, and reading must outrank scrolling. In short, the revolution won't be televised, because it'll be buried in the footnotes of banned books. Footnote: a modern intellectual and spiritual renaissance is essential to reversing the widespread decline in public understanding and autonomy. 8. Understanding, the foundation beneath freedom. True understanding is not surface-level agreement, it is structural awareness. The term itself, understanding, originates from the act of literally standing under a structure to examine its integrity. Without this foundation, no idea, law, or institution can bear weight. Modern society builds on ideological quicksand. People accept financial systems, legal codes, and political institutions without investigating the foundations beneath them. This is why so many are shocked when these systems collapse. It's not sabotage, it's structural failure. Understanding how the world works requires descending beneath appearances and questioning the frameworks. What is money? How do banks operate? Who writes the laws, and who benefits from their enforcement? Without this analytical depth, freedom is a facade. Footnote: structural understanding of societal systems is essential for meaningful freedom and resilience against systemic collapse. 9. The banking illusion, loans, lies, and legal fictions. Contrary to public belief, and probably everything taught in school, banks do not lend money. Legally, they cannot. What they do instead is create credit based on promissory notes, deposited into accounts opened in your name, without your knowledge, and issue funds against it. It's not lending, it's paperwork alchemy. When a customer borrows money for a car, the vehicle's appraised value is converted into commercial paper. The bank then uses that document to open a ghost account, credits it with the same value, and cuts a check, signed on your behalf. In effect, you funded your own loan. The bank simply facilitated the illusion and collected interest for the service. This shell game extends beyond car loans. Whether buying a home, a boat, or a burrito with a credit card, you're participating in a system of debt notes and legal fictions, not real money exchanges. The public is entranced by the ritual of banking, but behind the counter, it's all theater, performed with your signature in their profit. Footnote: modern banking relies on credit creation and legal fictions, not actual money lending, creating systemic illusions of value and debt. 10. The Great Payment Myth. In America's commercial system, no one pays for anything, at least not in the way most people believe. What's commonly exchanged in transactions are not payments but debt instruments, bills for bills. Handing someone a $100 bill after receiving a $100 invoice doesn't extinguish the debt, it merely trades one liability for another. Legally, Federal Reserve notes are not considered payment but rather a discharge of debt. This is why, under U.S. law, one cannot technically pay a bill. Instead, debts are discharged through mutual exchange of credit-based instruments. The buyer gets a product, the seller gets another promissory note, dressed up as currency. As a result, ownership becomes a legal gray zone. If no one pays, no one truly owns. What you call your car, home, or phone is, in many cases, merely property held in conditional trust, until proven otherwise. Welcome to the world of transactional theater, where every wallet is a prop and every purchase, a legal performance. Footnote: U.S. commerce operates on debt discharge rather than true payment, undermining common assumptions about ownership and transaction finality. 11. The ownership illusion, vehicles, bodies, and bureaucracy. In the eyes of the state, you do not own your car. When you place a registration tag on your vehicle marked for official use only, you are, by legal implication, transferring control to the state. Annual registration simply updates the record of where the state's asset is parked, and who gets to insure it. This concept doesn't stop at property. Legally, your body is considered a financial instrument. You are a security, a tradable asset on paper, and your compliance with seatbelt laws and mandatory insurance is not about safety, it's about preserving state-owned collateral. In this system, bodily autonomy is a regulated commodity, not an inalienable right. Even marriage is commercialized. A marriage license is, by definition, a permit to do something otherwise unlawful, namely, enter a state-recognized union. In law, everything from vehicles to personal relationships is treated as a matter of commerce. Love may be blind, but bureaucracy definitely isn't. Footnote: state control over vehicles, bodies, and relationships is maintained through legal mechanisms that convert personal assets into regulated instruments. 12. Maritime law and the business of being born. The legal system you think governs society is not quite what it seems. Much of modern law, especially in commercial and civil arenas, derives from maritime admiralty principles. In this framework, individuals are treated not as citizens but as vessels of commerce. Yes, in legal terms, you're less of a person and more of a ship in port. At birth, a legal entity is created in your name, commonly called a strawman, which becomes the tradable version of you in the system. This entity holds your commercial value, tracks your interactions, and becomes the basis of licensing, taxation, and regulation. And if you didn't know you had a shadow legal twin, congratulations, you just met it. From licensing your marriage to registering your vehicle, nearly every interaction with government functions under this commercial paradigm. The key principle? You are presumed to be a product of commerce, operating in a regulated sea of statutes, unless you declare otherwise. Footnote. Much of modern legal structure treats individuals as commercial entities under maritime law, enabling the regulation of life events as economic transactions. 13. Entertainment, obedience, and the death of discernment. The average citizen today is better versed in celebrity drama and sports scores than in constitutional law or financial systems. This is not a cultural accident, it's a control strategy. By flooding the population with entertainment and shallow information, the system ensures that deep thinking and critical inquiry remain rare and ridiculed. As long as people are emotionally invested in scripted distractions, they are less likely to notice when their freedoms are eroded, their wealth siphoned, or their consent manufactured. The result is a population trained to cheer at touchdowns, cry at award shows, and sleep through congressional sessions. Even basic civic knowledge, like the origin of laws, the function of banks, or the mechanics of taxation, is beyond reach for many. A culture that idolizes entertainers and ignores educators eventually loses its ability to distinguish between truth and performance. And once that line blurs, tyranny wears a smile and walks on red carpets. Footnote. Mass distraction through entertainment erodes public awareness, enabling systemic control and civic disengagement. 14. Currency, flow, and the language of financial deception. Modern finance speaks a language of metaphors that most people don't realize they're drowning in. The word bank doesn't just refer to a financial institution, it originates from riverbanks, which direct the flow of currency. Currency, of course, flows. It's liquid. If you run out of it, you're underwater. And if it dries up, you're insolvent. This symbolic structure is not poetic, it's deliberate. Financial systems are constructed to appear intuitive while functioning as sophisticated mechanisms of redirection and control. Your liquid assets are governed by credit streams and interest rates, yet most people never stop to ask who builds the dam, or who opens the floodgates. This linguistic shell game reinforces economic dependency. While people debate budgets and overdraft fees, they remain unaware that the entire financial ecosystem operates on metaphorical sleight of hand. It's not just your money that's fluid, it's your understanding that's being siphoned. Footnote. Financial terminology uses metaphor and misdirection to obscure the mechanics of economic control and public disempowerment. 15. Sovereignty or submission, the choice ahead. The world is not headed for danger, it's already in it. What remains is whether individuals choose to recognize their condition or remain sedated by comfort, distraction, and passive hope in political saviors. True sovereignty begins with reclaiming the mind. Everything else follows. The belief that voting equates to choosing leadership is another civic illusion. One may elect candidates, but those candidates are pre-selected by systems designed to preserve existing power. Real selection, of values, of vision, of reality, is withheld, hidden behind layers of marketing, lobbying, and controlled narratives. The time for intellectual passivity has expired. The next generation will inherit the consequences of today's silence or the fruits of today's awakening. Freedom is not restored by wishing, or tweeting, or praying. It is restored by thinking, reading, questioning, and, most importantly, acting with informed purpose. Footnote. Reclaiming sovereignty requires public awareness, intellectual independence, and the rejection of performative democracy.